Private collection. Alex Colville. Toronto, 1920. The painstaking realism and formal composition of Alex Colville's work have made him the foremost Canadian figurative painter of the post-war period. Not only did he work outside the mainstream of abstract painting, he also broke with the Canadian landscape tradition. After studying at Mount Allison University, Colville served as an official war artist during World War II, an experience that shaped his artistic principles of accurately observing and recording significant events. Taking many months to plan and complete each individual painting, Colville presents images from his personal experience and precisely worked out geometric structures that reflect his existentialist philosophy. Horse and train inspired by the lines, "Against a regiment oppose a brain, and a dark horse against an armored train." By poet Roy Campbell, this painting depicts with meticulous realism the confrontation of man and nature. 1954, glazed tempera on hardboard, 41 by 54 centimeters, Art Gallery of Hamilton, Canada. Fernando Botero. Metal, 1932. Although he is now a cosmopolitan figure with an international reputation, Fernando Botero described himself as the most Colombian of Colombian artists when he came to prominence in the late 1950s. Born and brought up in Medellin, Botero embarked on his career as an artist at the age of 16, when he exhibited at a show of local artists. After high school, he moved to Bogotá, where he became involved with the artistic community centered around the Café Automatica. He spent much of the 1950s traveling, before eventually settling in New York. During this period, Botero's painting developed from a Picasso-influenced style to the neo-figurative portrayals of rotund figures that are characteristic of his mature work. Although Botero's paintings and sculptures are not intended as caricatures, the exaggerated proportions of the figures are good-humored. Much of his work also has an element of social commentary, sometimes indirectly, but recently overtly, in his paintings of the Medellin drug cartels and the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Lifeline. 1944. In his teens, attends a school for bullfighters. 1951 moves to Bogotá and has his first one-man show. 1952-54 travels around Europe. 1956 marries Gloria Z and moves to Mexico. 1960 divorces Gloria and buys a studio in New York. 1973 moves his studio to Paris. 1974 his 4-year-old son is killed in a motor accident. 1983 settles in Tuscany, Italy. Our Lady of Fatima. In a highly unconventional handling of the subject, Botero portrays the Virgin Mary in what was to become his trademark, Fat Lady style. The work shows the influence of Picasso in the childlike simplicity of the figures, and of abstract expressionism in the texture of the brushwork. 1963, Museo de Arte Moderno, Bogotá, Colombia. I describe in a realistic form a non-realistic reality. When you start a painting, it is somewhat outside you. At the conclusion, you seem to move inside the painting. Fernando Botero. The dressmaker, as well as many slightly satirical portraits of pompous middle-class figures, Botero painted still lives and scenes of everyday life. This dressmaker, for example, is more sympathetically portrayed. Although still amply proportioned, she is less of a caricature, and the tools of her trade not only help define her character, but play an important role in the composition. Private collection. Society lady, woman on balcony with gloves. This portrait affectionately pokes fun at the pretensions of the bourgeoisie, a recurrent theme in Botero's painting. Despite the sophisticated technique and attention to detail, the curtain and the plump figure retain his characteristic flat perspective, emphasizing the irony of the image. 1995, oil on canvas, 132 by 102 centimeters, private collection. Alex Katz. New York, 1927. The detached, modern realist style of Alex Katz's mature work, often associated with pop art, but in fact predating it, evolved from his attempts to reconcile elements of abstract art with his representational works. Studying in New York and Skowhegan, Maine, from 1946 to 1950, Katz was influenced by abstract expressionism. In the 1950s, however, he painted a series of portraits of his friends and family in which he developed a figurative style, with flat planes of color and simplified figures. During the 1960s, Katz also produced a number of lithographs and screen prints in this simplified style, and some figures painted on freestanding wooden or metal cutouts. After being outside the mainstream of modern art for many years, Katz gained critical and popular success in the 1980s thanks to the somewhat impersonal atmosphere and smooth finish of his paintings. Summer Picnic Katz's reputation was largely established with his portraits, many of his wife Ada and son Vincent and their friends, often in a domestic setting. Reducing both figures and background to simple, flat planes gives the scene a cool and dispassionate mood. 1975, Oil on Canvas, 198 by 366 centimeters, private collection. Frank Auerbach. B. Berlin, 1931. Frank Auerbach was sent to Britain from Germany by his parents, who later died in a Nazi concentration camp. After World War II, he studied at Borough Polytechnic under David Bomberg, and at St. Martin's School of Art and the Royal College of Art. A one-man show in 1956 established his reputation, but also gained him some notoriety for his technique of very heavy impasto so thick on some paintings that they were laid flat rather than hung, which gives his work an almost sculptural quality. Auerbach often limits his palette to earth colors and even monochromes, and has restricted his subjects to close friends and family, and his surroundings in London. Lifeline. 1931, born into a Jewish family in Berlin. 1939, is sent to England to escape the Nazi regime. 1947, moves to London and studies at St. Martin's and the Royal College of Art. 1956, has his first exhibition at the Beaux-Arts Gallery, London. 2001, the Royal Academy stages a major retrospective of his work. JYM in the Studio 7. Auerbach prefers to paint subjects he knows well, especially portraits of his wife Julia, lover Stella, and the model Juliette Mills. The JYM of this painting's title. 1965, Oil on Board, 93 by 45 centimeters, Abbott Hall Art Gallery, Kendal, UK. Closer look. Impasto, building up layer on layer of paint, and reworking it at each stage, Auerbach creates an unusually thick impasto that gives his painting its characteristic texture. Jack Vettriano. B. Fife, 1951. A former mining engineer, Scottish painter Jack Vettriano was born Jack Hagen, but adopted his mother's maiden name after the success of his work in the late 1980s. Entirely self-taught, he started painting as a hobby in his 20s, and first exhibited at the Royal Scottish Academy Annual Show in 1988. Vettriano's work was an instant popular success, leading to exhibitions worldwide during the 1990s. His paintings attracted celebrity buyers and unprecedented prices, and reproductions of his work became bestsellers. Despite his commercial success, Vettriano's realist style and romantic, or mildly erotic, subjects remained controversial in the academic art world. The Singing Butler set on a windswept beach, Vettriano's most popular work, is typical of his style. The subject appeals to nostalgia, while his evocation of atmosphere is skillful. 1992, Oil on Canvas, 71 by 91 centimeters, private collection. Michael Andrews. B. Norwich, 1928, D. London, 1995. Michael Andrews studied at the Slade School of Art with William Coldstream, whose theory that all artists' marks should relate to something seen made a profound impression on him. Afterwards he became associated with the group of figurative painters loosely known as the School of London. Fellow members included Auerbach, Lucian Freud, and Francis Bacon. During the 1960s, Andrews painted a series of party scenes that captured the mood of the time. He followed these with his light series of aerial views. A trip to Uluru, Ayers Rock, in Australia in 1983 inspired a new spiritual context for much of his later landscape painting. A Melanie and Me Swimming. Andrews's most popular painting is an unusually personal image. It was painted after the first of several family holidays to Glenartney, in Scotland. 1978-79, Acrylic on Board, 183 by 183 centimeters, Tate, London, UK.